and I were joking about like this is an identity play. Like every time, this is an identity game.
Right.
We're
Right.
just gonna figure it out.
Welcome to My Got a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I review Georgia's 37-14 win over Georgia Tech, and we talk about our day in Athens since we were able to attend this game together. As always, remember to check out store.mygotapodcast.com to see our latest merch, and you can follow us on social media at My Got a Podcast. Finally, we'd love for you to check out our presenting sponsor, Oxia Time, at oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. Now, let's join the conversation in progress. We continue the trend where My God, a Podcast is undefeated when on site.
We're definitely not defeated when we are on site.
I tripped him on that.
Currently undefeated, checking in at number 1.
Amazing. So, but I guess before we even were able to meet up in Athens, I know we had the big holiday. So I know yesterday was a kind of a crazy week, shortened week, work week, and podcast recording was compressed to a shorter timeline even than I think we usually do. So appreciate bearing with on that. But yeah, I know. So like I made the trek down to Georgia. So we did Thanksgiving with Kim's family on Thursday. And like all the sides were had. I felt like, thanks Will for the sides power ranking. I think that helped me like get through my plate and know what I wanted to put on there, etc. So that was good. And then
did you hesitate at all?
Well, so it is right. So it is. Yeah, so it was kind of funny. The funny thing was actually like the difference between the meals, because so we basically ended up doing Thanksgiving twice, because like my mom and dad had like a second Thanksgiving for us basically on Friday with my parents, so with my sister and her husband and our niece and nephew, etc. So the funny thing was just like the West Coast Thanksgiving versus the Southern Thanksgiving. So it was good. Got to have the best of both families, and I had the nostalgia on Friday and Kim had the nostalgia on Thursday. So it was good stuff. So, across the board, we got to have like everything. We had one house had stuffing and one house had dressing. So like you had everything. So it was a good time.
Even better. We just had a combined function. Both families came in and, well, I should say my dad came in and my sister was out of town, but yeah, my dad came in and her dad and her brother and his wife and kids came over and we did the whole Thanksgiving. I had ham, I had turkey, we had it all.
Okay, as I say, so you did have the dual meats, because I know that's the big thing for you guys.
We had the dual meats because there was requests for turkey that were not satisfied last year. So we had some turkey instead of steak.
Okay. Okay, so last year there was no turkey. There was no turkey at all last year. I think I'd forgotten that.
No, there was no turkey at all last Thanksgiving. I had ribeyes.
Okay.
I went out and bought like from the butcher ribeyes, like Bobby Wilson style.
Nice. Too funny. Well, that's good. Yeah, and then so we were able to meet up Saturday morning. So
that was the big event, man. We got to hang out again.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I don't even think I told you this. Like our morning got off to a bit of a rocky start because like one of our dogs, Murray, wouldn't eat his food, and I was like, "Uh-oh."
He was playing with his food.
I was like,
omens.
Omens. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Nice. So I was like, "Oh man, if he's not eating, like, what's wrong with him?" But he eventually ate, so everything was fine. So,
as the big dogs do.
That's right. So yeah, made it in. It was pretty cool, man. So yeah, this was Kim's first game all season. I think the last game she went to was Arkansas last year.
I think it was the first time the wives met too, right?
First time wives met. I had never met Lindsay. So
oh really?
Yeah, because you had met Kim, but I hadn't met Lindsay.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
It was just the better halves of My Got a Podcast, just hanging out.
That's right. We got the full group photo with the wives. It was good. Good times we had. But yeah, so on my way we parked downtown. We were walking through the campus. and we were trying to get to the dog walk, and we were like walking across the bridge, and I heard someone yell Jim, and I turned around and I couldn't see who was yelling Jim. I was like, must someone was yelling for like a different Jim, but they yelled Jim again. So it was. So shout out Trent Decker spotted me between my got a podcast hat and then my version of the Kirby sweatshirt that like, oh my gosh, well, I tweeted out what I was going to wear the day before. Like that tweet went crazy. That was kind of weird. But yeah, so
hit the algorithms.
I hit the algorithm. It's pretty funny. But yeah, so Trent had a good conversation with Trent, so that was cool. So thanks Trent for grabbing a hold of me. That was fun. Yeah, and then we made it down to the dog walk, watched the dog walk. Went by. I think I told you at the Oregon game when I was talking to Hunter, I ran into one of Kim's coworkers and friends. She and her fiance at the Oregon game, and so we went. And we'll spend some time over at their tailgate. So shout out, thanks Kelly and Jason for having us over there. That was a good time. And then you and I met up over at Hug Dogs. And it was pretty funny when you walked up, Kim. I don't even know if Kim was like, go take a stalker picture of John and then text it to him and see.
So I see you.
I attempted to do that, but you saw me taking your picture. So didn't quite work out. But yeah, so that was awesome. So
yeah, we were running behind, man. I got a late start. As you know, my pre-run. I didn't even have a chance to send you my proof of the pre-run as that may be a Saturday tradition that the listeners may not be aware of. Is I usually text Jim that I did my run. I did my service to the undefeated season.
That's right.
And I didn't even get a chance to text that to you because I got up late. I was looking for all my running gear. Like I was so flustered this morning, much like the Georgia Bulldogs at the beginning of the game.
Right. Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, we were a solid 40 minutes behind. And then I think I texted you. I was like, I felt like I was on my way to Gaffney or something like that. With how much traffic was backed up and seemingly like in maddening fashion, like, traffic like opens up and then you're like, wait, why are we just standing still? We're wide open right now.
Yes. I always wonder that.
Good old 316. It's basically like driving into Gaffney on game day.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were behind, so I think we only get to tell you. I mean, I think I got a couple beers and that was it. And like then off we had to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it was we missed. I know it was funny. So we were at Jason and Dana's tailgate for a while, and then we were walking over to Greg's, and then we ran into Patrick and Megan on the way to Greg's, and we're talking to them. And then it was like, oh shoot, we need to go to the game. So apologies, Greg. That's what we missed. We ran into another fraternity brother on the way over, and we're just catching up with them. It's like, oh, time to go into the game. So then like at that point we split up, and you guys were like, you kind of meandered. Oh yeah, because I was saying like you could most likely come sit with us if there was room. So I needed to go verify that. But correct. you guys kind of stayed like down by the hedges and stuff for pregame for a bit, right?
We did. I kind of soaked up because I wasn't really sure where we were going to sit. When I told Lindsay where we were potentially going to go, like she was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can." She was like dizzy and stuff. So anyway, taking her that high up was probably going to be a problem for me. But
gotcha.
But anyway. I wanted to kind of take in the seniors, see if I can catch a glimpse of folks walking by. I got some videos of Stetson, from the sideline walking in, and I think I saw Muschamp. I shouted at Muschamp. I don't know if I told you that. Like,
you didn't tell me this part.
So like apparently like I just need to like hang out on the sides because I can just yell at the coaches and they'll like turn and look at me and be like, "Hey."
That's awesome.
So I yelled at Muschamp and told him "Go Dogs," and he just gave me a fist bump. I didn't get a "Go Dogs" back like Stacey Searles, but I did get a fist bump. But I kind of chalked that up to Muschamp being dialed in.
Could be.
But yeah, it was pretty cool. Saw Drive. Let's see. I think the other really cool thing was I saw all these number 10 jerseys walking around. And I quickly realized that it was the unofficial My God a Podcast wide receiver of My God a Podcast. It was Kyrus Jackson's family was on the sideline, and I shouted out to them and said, "We love Kyrus!" and his mom turned around, which I assume it was his mom. She kind of looked like a matriarch of the group.
Yeah.
She turned around and was like doing a mom fist bump and clapping and saying thank you.
Nice.
So that was a nice little subtle moment for a one half of My God a Podcast.
Did you say I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, that I doubted your son 2 years ago? Okay.
I did not. I mean, the band was blaring. I was actually surprised they could even hear me. But then, at that point, the band was going, and then the helicopter flyover was pretty cool.
That was
Apache, cool. The Apache flew over, and then really wanted to. I told Lindsay, I was like, well, let's just stay here for the lone trumpeter. Yeah, and we got the lone trumpeter, which was cool, and then made our way up the stairs to the wood section.
Yes, nice. Which you were then greeted by and found out the fact that we had some Tech fans sitting around us. And so you got the full sitting with the Wood family experience of what it's like when there's opposing fans sitting near us.
It was a little surprising, to be honest. Everybody was a little impassioned. Lindsay was caught off guard. I think she was like, I found your equals.
Oh my gosh. Good times. Yeah. Don't interact with the opposing fans. That's my advice. Do as I say, not as I do. I guess I might as well repeat what I said. So, like I said, don't interact people. But this is related to the game. So I think what I didn't open with was like, hey, the game went exactly as we thought, because actually the score was pretty close to what we thought. So I think we just didn't think it was going to start out the way it did. So when Georgia Tech came out and marched down the field on that opening drive and scored a touchdown, there's a guy in front of us who was very, very happy about it, and which is fine, cheering your team. I got no problem with that. But he was like turning around and like doing this weird, like mocking, barking thing, like at us and stuff. And he was celebrating a lot. And so this is when like you shouldn't say anything. But what I said to him was, because he's wearing a number 1 Georgia Tech jersey. So I said, "You're having a lot of fun right now, Reggie Ball," is what I said. And
because he was the number 1.
Yeah. And then he was like, "Yeah, I am." I was like, "Okay, well, that's good." But yeah, he wasn't having fun later, but that's fine. There were some very nice, like Tech, like student-ish age kids sitting in front of us. They were very friendly. We talked to them a bunch, but
they didn't appear to be associated.
They did not know that guy. Yeah, no, for sure. But whatever. At any rate, like I said, just the best thing to do is to not interact with them. I did not follow that rule, so I need to remember that more.
Yeah.
At any rate, but yeah, so man, that I guess kind of getting into the game, right? Like that first drive. I mean, that definitely was unexpected. I imagine that was pretty like scripted. I assume. I know there was actually like 2 plays that they ran twice. Like they ran the same kind of like wide receiver screen over to the right, like actually on back-to-back plays at one point, and then that 4th down play that they ran, where they was like had the long pass play. They had run that same play earlier in the drive, and it didn't work the first time, and it did the second time. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a good drive. And kind of tip of the cap to them. I think they had a good plan, and it worked. And actually after the game, I saw Jason Huggins, and he'd asked me like what do you think happened like after that? Like, because we just shut him down. Like, did we adjust? What adjustments were made or anything like that? And I had no answer at the time, but after I rewatched it, I don't think we really did. I think we just kind of stayed the course on defense, and we've got a lot better players, and that kind of played out off the rest of the game. And I think too, a lot of it was Georgia Tech came out fired up with a lot of emotion, and we did not. like we didn't look interested. And
it was the classic. It was the classic, nooner game. Like this game tends to have that kind of vibe for one team or the other. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You've been going to this game for a lot of time, more than I have. But it just, if you don't come out ready to play, it's just going to be one of those slow moving games. It seems like.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that's right. And I mean, it's like it's so different now as opposed to like when we were in school when they were like we were like equals back then, right? Like it was more back and forth. And I mean, they got us 3 years in a row. When I got to school, I've said that a million times. But like now, like I think actually Graham said it pretty well in this 12 takeaways that like, this game has basically been a walkover in recent memory. And again, like hat tip to Brent Key. Like I said, man, I think he made a big difference with that program after they let Geoff go, and he's got them playing. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say he's got them playing above their potential, or maybe he's getting them to their potential or closer to their potential. Right, as opposed to Collins. I think Collins had them not living up to their potential. It's probably the more fair way to say it. So.
Yeah, I would say that tends to happen when you have a midget with capri pants on coaching you. It's hard to take that person seriously. And then versus you've got a guy that's has actually been there before, and I don't think he had lost to Georgia in his career.
I know he won his last
as a player.
I know he won his last 3 for sure.
Well, there's. I don't know. I just think that it's just one of those things where we just didn't come out. I think that I don't know. They were aided by a lot of. I think at one point I remember looking on the replay. It was like we had like 100 yards worth of penalties or something like that. It just felt like that they just had drives extended by these like random penalties. I mean, we had literally got a penalty called on us for aiding the running back at one point. Like what? Yes. And then Brock Bowers had a pass interference, not Brock Bowers, but there was a pick play that was called where there was literally no contact whatsoever.
Yeah, that was bad.
You had Arian Smith's catch like called back. Then you had Brock Bowers called for a face mask.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, there was just so many like weird, like random penalties and stuff like that just seemed like that. I don't know. It's almost like we were fighting the 12th man.
Yeah. Well, that definitely felt like a throwback to playing Georgia Tech when we were at college. I'm actually not sure. Like, I assume that was an ACC crew because they usually do that where like the road team, it's their conference's officials. It's usually how it goes. But I'm not sure. I never saw that like written down anywhere. And I just looked at like I don't recognize the referee's name or anything. James Carter was the head official. That doesn't mean anything to me. So I don't know. I don't recognize that name. So could be, couldn't be, not really sure. But yeah, man, that was pretty brutal. I think some of them like on rewatch weren't so bad, but the interference on Ladd was a horrible call. I think he got held, if anything. And he didn't touch the guy that was covering Bowers. So that was just really weird. It kind of felt like they were kind of calling it a pick play or something.
And there was another play where we had was the face mask and then horse collar at the same time on Brock Bowers.
Yeah,
that they missed that call. There was a couple of holds where I felt like we were chasing after the quarterback and we were getting held and they didn't call that. Like, I don't know. There's just so many little things. Like again, you look at all the things that go wrong for you, right? And they still couldn't do anything on us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like that's where, kind of to go back to like what we said, right? Like we said, if you protect the football, you're going to win the game. And I mean, we did, right? So the turnover margin for the game was even. Both teams had one turnover, and ours was in garbage time, and that led to their garbage time touchdown. I mean, that's where, like I was saying on the predictions. Let's see because it was. I'm trying to remember what you had. So I had 38-6. You had 42-6, right? And then actual was 37-14. Like I was right there. It was 30. It was 37-7. And that probably should have been what it was if we didn't have that late fumble. But yeah, I mean, again, but that's where I was saying, like, I think by the end of the game, it kind of played out about how we thought it would, right? It just, I think really it was that beginning. I mean, the first drive, and then just the fact that we only had 10-7 at the half, right? So, I mean, I would have expected that we had a bigger lead at the half and then kind of called the dogs off later. And it wasn't so much that. That's definitely not how it went down in this one. But I am curious, and I definitely haven't heard any like leaked audio or anything, but I feel like someone did say there was a pretty like lively halftime speech, but I don't know, by Kirby. Because he seemed pretty calm coming off the field with the sideline reporter from my rewatch, but I imagine he probably gave him we'll say he gave them a pep talk at that.
I mean, he must not have been too bothered because, I mean, I don't know. This is just another one of those games that Georgia's playing with his food again. I remember I think you were getting some beverages and snacks, but I think I mentioned to Lou, I was like, Georgia's playing with their food again, and he goes, "Yeah, exactly right." Frustrating. I mean, you look at the win probability. I think our lowest percentage was in the third quarter, which is still crazy to think about. Like that period of time where we just got multiple turnovers in the red zone and punched in. All of a sudden, it kind of felt like the Florida game. The Florida game last year where we scored 20 points in like a matter of minutes before halftime, and the game was basically over right after that. And that's kind of what it felt like after we finally got some momentum, some turnovers, some fumbles, a block punt or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even at that, like even before any of those turnovers happened or those momentum plays happened, we were still at 91%. Win probability. That was the lowest that we were at, and that was when it was 7-10 Georgia, and with 11:29 left in the third quarter. Okay. So even though that game was so tight, we still had that win probability sitting at a very comfortable spot. Which it felt that way the whole time. Like there was a guy that was sitting next to me, bless his heart. Hopefully he's not a listener, but yeah, he was just dropping F-bomb after F-bomb about all this stuff. And I was like, man, I get it. Like, I'm frustrated, but like, dude, they are doing nothing. Like eventually we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And it was certainly annoying. I mean, I think that, we talk about, manufactured adversity, right? Like, I'm not saying that they threw the first possession of the game, but like we can now Kirby has the luxury of being able to tell his guys, like, look, Tech scored on you guys in the first quarter. What do you think Ohio State, or what do you think Michigan's going to do, or LSU? What do you think they're going to do this weekend?
Right?
Like, you can't relax. There's no days off in season. You know what I mean? So he's got that edge. He's got that edge going for him on what's upcoming, and it's just. Yeah, I never was bothered. Like Lindsay was like, "Are you not upset?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, but this is what we've done all season long." Like,
yeah, totally agree.
You and I were joking about it. You and I were joking about like this is an identity play. Like every time, this is an identity game.
Right.
We're just gonna figure it out. And upon rewatch, like my first take on the offense, like I guess we'll just talk about Georgia's offense. I was more surprised watching the game on replay versus in the stadium. I did not realize how ineffective our passing game was when I was watching it live in the stadium. So rewatching it on the rewatch, I was like, God, Lee, we had like 40 yards passing or something like that in the third quarter. And so that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that because something you actually said in the Kentucky review, like you asked, had Kentucky made a blueprint to beat Georgia around like trying to take away Stetson Bennett, and I think that's interesting because like before the blueprint was stop the run and make Stetson beat you. So the one thing I want to say is I feel like it does say a lot about Stetson Bennett and the way opposing teams see him now, that now they're trying to, blitz Stetson, make him uncomfortable, throw him off his game. That's the plan instead of make him beat you because they know he can beat you. Right. So they want to prevent that from happening and then maybe leave some room for the run game, which we took advantage of, which was good to see us do that. So I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing I would say is like, I think Georgia Tech did try that maybe Kentucky showed that, maybe people will try it, but Tech, they didn't have the players to do that, right? Like it was not sustainable. So, but
yeah, they didn't have the offense to do it either, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
That's kind of my take on the whole thing is that you maybe you can come up against. I do not think that you have it in LSU. The one team that we had left on our potential schedule, like assuming we beat LSU in number 1 and we go to the Peach Bowl, we're playing number 4. So TCU is not super concerning for me. The Michigan, frankly, is not super concerning to me either.
Mm-hmm.
The one team that was a little bit worrisome for me was Ohio State. So like if you were to try to do that, I believe that Michigan's bread and butter is the running backs.
Yep.
I'm not really sure. I'd have to dive a little bit more into what TCU has going on, but like the broadcast crew talked about this. Like if you are planning on running the ball against UGA, good luck.
Yeah, seriously.
If you just want to continue to, 2 yards, 3 yards in a cloud of dust all day long and maybe limit the possessions and then try to shut Georgia down and make Stetson Bennett, one-dimensional, taking away the pass and let Georgia try to grind it out and just take the time away from them.
Right.
That could be problematic for us if someone was able to actually do that. Now, the problem with that is that if we start getting our running game going, then you start having to pull defenders into the box. You have to start, sending some safeties in, because that's what they ultimately were starting to do. They're sending safeties, they're sending corners.
Yeah.
And that just opened up, with the wheel route.
Man. Yes. Yeah, that was awesome.
I seriously thought he was going to take that to the house.
I thought he was too. He was so close. So close. And then they finally called a horse collar on that tackle, by the way.
Yes.
But yeah, man, you got McIntosh had 7 2-point yards a carry. Edwards had 7.1 yards a carry. And Kendall Milton had 14 yards a carry. So,
I mean, it was almost like we should have had a sign up that said we run this state.
I believe one young Andrew Smart held up such a sign post game.
Did he? I didn't see that. Oh
yeah.
Man, I missed it.
Yeah, that's out there.
That's awesome.
I wanted to call out a couple of things. So we had a 99-yard touchdown drive of our own in this game. So that was good to see, which included a play in which the ball was handed off to one Brock Bowers. He shifted into tailback or running back at least. I was a little close to the line of scrimmage, made it be a tailback, but so that warmed my heart. Even though it was only like a 2-yard game, I guess you can vouch. I got very excited.
Yes, he did. He goes, Brock Bowers just lined up at running back. And I was like, oh yeah.
The other thing was, so the play that you mentioned earlier, where the Brock Bowers face mask penalty, not on that drive, obviously. That was on a field goal drive, I think, or maybe even punted. I'm trying to remember. But so we had 4th and 1, and we lined up like we were going to go for it, and we called timeout. But on that play, AD Mitchell was in at receiver as I guess a bit of a decoy. And what's interesting is I didn't even notice that in the stadium, but on the replay, AD Mitchell was pissed that we didn't snap the ball. I don't know if you saw that. He was screaming at the sideline, like he wanted to run a play. So I thought that was interesting. So I don't know what that means. That could just be emotions running high during a game, but I thought that was interesting. But yeah, that was actually, so then after that timeout, we ran that play. The whatever we'll call it, end around, I guess, to Brock Bowers that had the funky penalty. So yeah, just wanted to call that out. And then also the Rosemary Saint touchdown catch. That was a heck of a catch.
Heck of a catch.
Touchdown of the game, I believe. That was incredible. And again, hoping that I can say welcome back Kendall Milton. I mean, he is continuing to look like his old self again. He's got that he's got a burst that I think was missing for a while. So just a few things there.
It was a good burst for sure. When he sprang loose. I don't know. I don't know that Dejan takes that to the house. Maybe Kenny takes it to the house. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no one was able to close him down. So that was nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess a couple Well, I was gonna say some special teams things, right? So you mentioned the block punt or the tackled. I guess we just tackled the punter. Maybe I don't know if there was so much as a block punt, but so that was good to see.
We took advantage of their mistakes.
That's right. That's right. So that, and then also, while Kearis didn't have a catch on senior day, he did probably have one of the better kickoff returns we've had all year. I mean, not that it was a spectacular or anything, but it was a good one. It was positive. We didn't get tackled like inside the 20. So that was good. And then let's see, Ladd had a pretty good punt return. I thought he was going to break that one, take that in the house. That was good.
He was, had he not, did he cut outside or did he cut inside? I can't remember.
He crossed paths with a blocker that like Rosemy.
I think it was Rosemy Jack Saint, number one. Whoever was wearing number one at that time. Had he just followed him, I think he went outside. Had he stayed in the middle, I feel like that he had a better convoy. Although in his defense, he probably didn't know there was someone closing behind him. But
right, for sure.
Yeah, he was very close, very close.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is something that I didn't really thought about, but I wasn't thinking about it in the moment. But I wanted to credit you. You were thinking about it because I believe you said to me that apparently we had come to Jackpod's senior day because Jackpod Leslie had a great game.
Talk about an unsung hero in the season. Like I mean, we haven't really talked about him in a minute, but I'm not sure where he is ranking in terms of the what is it, the Ray guy, and that's the punter, whatever the best kicker in the country. I don't know where he's ranking on those right now, but he's like a 92% on the season, and he had hit a 50-yard field goal. I didn't realize that he had hit a 50-yard field goal in the game. I think I looked down and was like, wait, Jackpot hit a 50-yard field goal?
Yeah.
Where did I miss that?
Yeah, and he crushed it. That was going away from our seats. He absolutely crushed that one. Yeah, so that was good to see. Good to see that. I guess on the senior day note, Bobby Beal had a fumble recovery. So it was good stuff. It was a good day. It was. So
and apparently they get a replica of the Governor's Cup. Credit to George Foster and 100 Sanford for that little tidbit when they discussed with Joe Hamilton, which if you haven't listened to that episode, is pretty cool listening to the two guys talk about really competitive UGA versus Georgia Tech games, which is not something that many of us are used to in recent years.
Right. It was good. And it confirmed my suspicion that Joe Hamilton does seem like a pretty nice guy. We talked about that once at one point in the past. He seems like a good guy.
I love Joe Hamilton. I always thought he was a nice dude. Kind of like a Tech version of DJ Shockley, if you will.
I think that's fair.
But yeah, they were talking about the Governor's Cup and how the winner of this game gets a replica of the Governor's Cup, which I did not know before listening to that episode.
Yeah. I think it's the senior class. I think the senior class of the winning team gets a replica. Yeah.
Only the seniors. So if you lose that game like Kirby did on his senior season,
that's a good point.
You don't get that.
That's a good point.
So George even asked him. He said, "You got your statue?" He's like, "Heck yeah, I got it." With the score emblazoned on it and everything. And like you talk to the senior classes, they mentioned it. Like that's something that those guys talk about. Like, oh, you don't have one. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. That's true. Yeah, and George got his too because George was on that 51-7 team in 2002. So good stuff. I don't have much more in this one. Why don't we take a quick moment to remind everyone that season 3 of My God, a Podcast is presented by Oxia Time. Oxia Time is a custom watch company. And if you haven't seen them yet, you really need to go check out their Georgia 2021 National Championship watch collection. These timepieces are officially licensed by both the College Football Playoff and the University of Georgia. It's got the Power G on the face, as well as 2020 national champions with the CFP logo. The CFP logo is on the clasp. It's a very classy watch. John and I both have one. We love wearing them. We were wearing them around the game. Actually, John, I don't think I have the picture Lindsay took of our watches. You got to send that to me. We got to put that one
out. Oh, yeah.
So we got to get a hold of that one. We got to put glasses on it and get that one.
We got to put glasses on it. Yep.
So be sure, definitely go check them out at oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. And exciting, actually, like just this week, Oxy Time is also now partnering with our friends over at Bulldogs Battling Breast Cancer. So if you recall, we had Dwight on earlier this year as part of our Vanderbilt preview, talking about the pink out and all the great things that Bulldogs Battling Breast Cancer does around the Athens area. So you can actually right now use code BBBC10 and still get 10% off your timepiece, and also a portion of the proceeds will go to Bulldogs Battling Breast Cancer. So be sure to go check them out, and need to get those orders in ahead of the holidays.
And take a look at the latest edition of Bulldog Illustrated for the SEC Championship week, which, as we record that this week, but there's an ad that you may actually see the watches in your edition of Bulldog Illustrated.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, for sure. Heavily involved with Bulldog Illustrated is our good friend Jeff Dantzler of the Bulldog Brunch.
The Red Mule Grits.
So good. Which I did not go to this weekend. Oh well, that's okay.
What?
Although Lily is still talking about it, by the way. I told Jason and Dana, I was like, Lily is still talking about the hamburger from the old grill.
Crazy.
It was so good.
The key to a woman's heart.
That's right. That's right. Let's do a quick Coach Trillbill update. So hey, how about this? That we both went 6-2 on the week. So you maintained your 5-pick lead. You had a clean sweep on the offense. You went 3-0. I feel like where I continue to thrive is these special teams and miscellaneous questions. Although you got those both right as well, so that's okay. And but the funny thing is the consistency actually too. So on offense, I'm 20-16 on offense and defense. And then you're 24-12 on offense and 22-14 on defense. So pretty close. I don't know. Just looking at some of these numbers is kind of funny.
I see that my Kirby Smart strategy of bend but don't break is panning out for the over-unders.
I like it. I guess it's only the second time. We already talked about that one. This is the third time ever in the history of Georgia football that we've made it to 12-0. So that would be 1980 last year and this year. So pretty good times in Athens. So pretty cool stuff happening with this team.
I think that we talked about on the last episode how Kirby and UGA have now joined the 08-09 Alabama team and the two I can't remember the years for Spurrier, those two Florida teams that went undefeated in the SEC. Well, now UGA joins two other teams nationally that have had a 12-0 season, have had undefeated regular seasons in back-to-back years. I think it was it Clemson and Florida State?
Okay.
It was Clemson and Florida. So the Trevor Lawrence Clemson teams and the Jameis Winston Florida State team.
Famous
Jameis, whatever. Jameis. Crab legs Winston. Crab legs Winston and Auburn with a lake. Those two teams were special, and it's you hear everybody talking about this, they're frustrated by how we're winning. We're not winning by enough. We're not winning by enough style points. We're not scoring 60 points on Vanderbilt in desperation to stay relevant like some SEC East teams out there. You got guy sitting next to me wearing a baseball jersey at the football game saying, dropping all sorts of swear words and stuff, but literally we were not stressing that game at all. I don't think that the average Georgia fan, that if you know someone or are married to someone that is yelling and screaming at the TV consistently, I'd say over the course of 3 or more quarters,
right.
About how angry they are about this team. They are not a serious person that that understands what this team is about.
Yeah.
I think that Graham and those guys have done a really good job of, categorizing these games. And I think that they recognize that there was just on the one hand, this is like exactly what we asked for.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we tried throwing it, it's not working. We're dropping back, we're having to roll out, like it's just not working. The passes aren't there, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
And so we pivot and we go to something else. And I know that Dustin from Dog Central, Dustin, he's like, he had mentioned like, oh, we're just going to do run, pass, run, pass, run, pass.
Right.
And it's the old Mike Bobo kind of thing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we do those same kind of pattern, but as frustrating as it is, that is the sign of a offensive coordinator and a head coach and defensive staff that are confident in what they have on their plate.
Yeah.
Yep. They know that they're not going to get beat, or they know that they're going to get beat less often on defense than they are on offense, in my opinion. We just kind of stick around and bide our time. And I do think you were joking, like, are we going to have, any plays that we've left out? Are we holding anything back?
Yeah.
I would say that we're not necessarily. I mean, there was some creativity. There were some end arounds, to try to convert. We had a rollout on, the goal line situation.
We threw the ball on fourth down, right, to Brock Bowers for a touchdown. So
right. So I think that there's definitely some areas that you could look at and say, man, they kind of went to the mattresses, if you will, to try to get something converted there. I don't know that they have everything necessarily out there. Like you said, you mentioned AD Mitchell being out there. I heard Kirby talking about it this week about how he could have been ready to go. They expect him to maybe do some more participation this week. I'm not sure that he will, but it's probably going to be a George Pickens situation, in my opinion. Like, maybe he comes back in the semifinal, maybe he comes back in the final. Unless they just have everything under control. And that's what's been going on in this with this team. Like, they've literally never been not in control of a game the entirety of the season, with the exception of the Missouri game. But you still felt like they were gonna pull it out.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, you don't need to be Munsoning. And I feel like we said this a lot last year, and we probably haven't said it enough this year, is like, you need to enjoy it, man. Like, like, these are the good old days, right? I mentioned it to somebody on Dog Central, like, Andy Bernard said it the best on The Office. Like, you wish there was a way to know that you're in the good old days before they're gone. So enjoy this. This is a heck of a ride. This team is, I mean, they may not be perfect, but their record is, right? So
yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, guys, I heard, so I'll put it to you this way. This team is just lunch pail. Like, I hesitate to say that because they haven't actually been lunch pail, but like, they've been just quietly dominating people, like just quietly just beating the piss out of everyone.
Yeah.
And you feel like like some of these games were like name your score games if we didn't like take if we weren't handcuffed the entire game or whatever.
Right.
Like, if I told you before the season that Stetson Bennett was going to have 3,151 passing yards on the season and be ranked number 2 as a passing yard leader, like, would you have taken that deal preseason?
Heck yeah.
He is number 2 in the SEC for on passing yard leaders, regular season passing yard numbers.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, what more do you ask for from the kid? Like, I get it. Like, he's super frustrating at times. Like, why don't you keep it? I guess that's something that we haven't talked about, because you and I talked about this at multiple points.
Yeah.
Like, if he'd have just kept the ball on one of those keepers, like, he could have just walked into the end zone from 30 yards out or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are definitely frustrating points. Those are frustration points throughout the season that have been there. Like, why doesn't he throw this ball more perfectly? Why doesn't he drop that in a little bit better?
But like on the keepers too, we don't know like if he even has that option to play. Like I say that, right? Like when it happens, but you don't know. Like it may just be a handoff and he doesn't even have the option. And then when he did keep it later in the game, he didn't score.
Well, yeah, like sure, like I get that, like, but I feel like that on some of those situations, like the secret is out on Stetson, right? That he kind of burned his red shirt in that regard in what was it, the South Carolina game where he like juked the kids out of the shoes.
Yeah,
like the goal line Stetson Bennett keeper is a known quantity at this point. There's film out there on it.
Okay.
There maybe is some film on him keeping it, like the play against Auburn where he scampered for like 50 yards for a touchdown. But like let him keep it when we're sitting there on the 30-40 yard line where everybody thinks we're going to pass it or run it. You know what I mean? To convert and like just keep it, one time. Like
right.
I don't know. There were a lot of plays like that out there. I heard who was it? It was an NFL player, Roddy White. Roddy White on Twitter said that he had looked at and is just convinced that Stetson is not a good quarterback. Let me tell you, man, he's outgaining Mr. Heisman himself, Hendon Hooker, Rocky Top's self-proclaimed Heisman finalist. He is outpassing Mr. Heisman himself, Bryce Young, from Alabama, and Spencer Rattler, who looks like he's probably going to be surging up the draft boards. Like all of these guys, Anthony Richardson, AR-15, Will Levis, who was preseason like Mr. Potentially one of the first quarterbacks taken off the board. Like all of those guys are getting outshined by Mr. Walk-On himself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Stetson Bennett has never lost a game between the hedges as the starter. So I think
13-0. Name a quarterback that can say that.
yeah, it's unbelievable. All right, man. One thing I did want to be sure to mention, I thought that was pretty cool. Kirby came out in the post game press conference dressed up like Vince Dooley. So he was actually wearing one of Vince Dooley's ties, and he had on a sweater. So hat tip to Kirby. That's pretty cool.
Did I miss this?
Yeah, I guess so. He did his post game press conference in Vince Dooley attire. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, you got to go check out the pictures of that. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
So there was that. And then just sorry we didn't get to hang out and have dinner with you guys, but at least we got to chat for a bit post game.
We did, man. Post game was probably my favorite. We got to hang out a little bit. It sounds like the tailgate's pretty much closed up shop because it looked like it was going to rain and it kind of did for a while. But the post game for me was so great. Like that's the benefit of having the nooner in Athens was the game gets out. We were able to walk through North Campus. We happened to be able to park like right next to Bar South downtown, which is where we were planning on eating dinner at anyway if we could get in. There was nobody there. We got in, had a good time, had some cocktails, and just I was trying to save you a seat. And by the way, that table that I pointed out never got sat in.
Whatever. Yeah, I talked to the hostess about it. Whatever.
so ridiculous. But yeah, it was great. I had some Weller, and we had some good Southern food. And then after that, I went by, and my wife wanted to take me shopping, and so we went to Onward Reserve, and she went crazy at Onward Reserve. So
that's too funny.
I have some clothes for the holidays.
Nice. Well, that was fun, man. That was fun. I got a podcast undefeated in person, and I think I'm getting this right. First time we've sat at a game to get together since Clemson last year. Right?
Since Clemson, for sure.
Yeah. That was fun. That was fun.
I don't think we've sat in any other ones.
Yeah. So that was a good time. Good times were had. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we'll be back soon to preview, the game that's always the goal to make it to at the beginning of the season. That's where everything runs through is the SEC championship. We'll be back soon to preview that one.
Absolutely, man. It's time to go get some Raging Cajuns out of here. They're
Nice.
a little bit more depressed than the average fan in this game.
Yeah, seriously, for sure.
As evidenced by the ticket prices that I've seen.
Right.
We'll get to that.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, this was fun, man. It was great. Good times. And go Dogs.
Go Dogs.